if you got something specific going on, we got a couple of guys in the group right now that are dealing with some legal issues, and it could be tough. And over, it's sad. It's like that video we watched a couple of weeks ago. When we're a society that treats addiction. Addiction is primarily treated by the Department of Corrections, and I don't know what the numbers are now, but I think it's like 88% of everybody that's incarcerated right now is there for drugs or something they did on drugs or alcohol. And that doesn't mean that we don't have some accountability, but there's a lot of people, and like these guys that we're dealing with, it's a little bitty thing, and but you've got a history of legal paper, so to speak, and you're still trying to overcome something from 10 years ago, and you make a little mistake, and it now it can cost you 8 years of your life, 5 years of your life. So anyway, be thinking about those guys and praying for them. You guys know who they are, because that's the last place they need to be. These are very productive members of society, right? They have, each of them have their own businesses. They hire people. They put people to work. They give a lot of their own people second chances. And the last place we want to see them is incarcerated. Okay, so unrealistic expectations. And I started off kind of going in one direction, and really, as I ended up I ended up in a different direction, because what's really behind what really drives our unrealistic expectations, or another way to think of it is, unrealistic expectations are premeditated resentments, and they go together. Just think about when you have an experience, and now you're upset about that experience, and something's not working out, or something's not going fast enough, or it's going too fast, or whatever it is. And then we start feeling irritable and restless and discontent, and we get stuck in the resentment of it, all because our expectations for that experience was out of whack. So learning how to bring realistic expectations to the table or to your life is really the key for managing and maybe healing, and ultimately never really holding on to resentments. That's huge. So the board is as much about resentment, dealing with resentment, as it is unrealistic expectations. But let's break that down. The definition of unrealistic is scenarios that fail to align with the facts. Any scenario that fails to align with the facts. Not our thinking, not our desires, not what we wish could happen. It's just factual. It's like, think about maybe relationships that we might have with other people. It could be a coworker, family member, it could be a stranger. And your dealings with this person leave you frustrated, disappointed, angry, anxious, whatever. And when you really break that down, what you'll recognize is it's not because they're doing anything different. They're doing what they always do. It's our expectation that this time they'll do something different, right? We're waiting for someone else to do something different so that then I could feel better. And so we, the old expressions, we start pitching tents in our heads. We start renting space in our head to other people, places, things, and situations. And then we can't figure out why we're irritable, restless, discontent, upset, resentful, bitter, at least a lot of the time. Maybe not all the time, but a lot of time. And we can revert right back to that. That's what road rage is. Thinking, well, because I'm driving today and I've got important things to do, everyone else is supposed to be perfect in their driving. The traffic flow has to be exactly the way I want it, etc., etc. And of course, that's not a scenario that aligns with facts. It's a scenario that would align with maybe our wishes, wishful thinking. Yeah, it would be great. I'm running late this morning. I've got to get clear across town. Don't normally make that in 20 minutes, but maybe today I can make it in 20 minutes. That's wrong thinking. But we will believe that maybe this time traffic's going to be perfect, all the lights are going to be green, nobody else is going to cut me off, everyone's going to use their blinkers, whatever it is. And of course, that thinking doesn't align with facts, and so inevitably we have a situation where now we're delayed, and it's that person's fault, and then it's this person's fault, and there's a speed zone up ahead, and by the time we get to our destination, we could be just a total mental wreck. Now, that's kind of a dramatic example, but we can have that. But now, start paying attention to just the little bitty interactions that we have as we go through our day. And start noticing what our expectation is for that experience. Like maybe trying to get a hold of somebody. You're trying to reach somebody. It could be important, it might not be important, it doesn't matter. You're trying to get a hold of somebody, you're calling them, you're texting them, you've left them message after message after message, and of course with each one, you're getting more upset, more frustrated, more, and then we might start complaining about it. We might start complaining about it in our mind. We might start complaining about it to someone else. Hey, have you talked to so-and-so yet? No, they won't call me back. I've texted them 18 times today. I think they're ignoring me. And then, we can just go down this whole laundry list of magical, fantastical thinking. When in reality, we don't actually know anything about why we haven't gotten responses to our text messages. And this is why people, and we can all do this, and you really want to look at this if you want to go through life having realistic expectations. So we finally talk to the guy. It could be a girl too. We finally talk to the person, and the first thing out of our mouth is, man, I've been trying to reach you. Right? We got a little attitude about it. No concern whatsoever about what's going on with them. All we know is I feel inconvenienced. I feel like I'm being mistreated. I feel bitter and disappointed. Now I'm completely distracted from my own affairs. So that's my opportunity to kind of release that. Geez, man, I've been trying to reach you. And then what are we waiting for? We're waiting for their excuse. This is why we always say, in recovery, adults don't explain themselves. We don't have to explain ourselves as an adult. We need to be accountable. Maybe there was some sort of commitment that we were supposed to talk at such and such time, and so maybe an apology is required, but it's not about the other person. It's about what's going on with us and how we can get wrapped up in these kind of experiences. And then the other person might say, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I just got off the phone, I've been talking for an hour, my grandmother just died. Well, if we hear that, if we get an excuse like that, then we're good. Oh, okay, that's understandable, fine. And what we're saying is I'm willing to not hold a grudge, to not hang on to any resentment, because your explanation has enough value to me. What if we hear back, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't call back, I've just been really busy. Or maybe it's nothing, maybe it's just yeah, I'm sorry. We, in our sickness, in our unrealistic expectations / ongoing resentments, we want to know why. And that's what we're ultimately going to break down in this next 35 minutes. What's going on with us that we struggle so much to just be us throughout all of our interactions? We're always bouncing, we're gauging our sense of self on the behavior of other people. We're constantly bouncing against the world, hoping, man, I hope it works out this time. I hope I get what I want this time. And so what we're doing, it's a recipe for disaster. So we're going through life with these unrealistic expectations. The definition of expectation is a strong belief that something will happen. So remember unrealistic. It's a scenario that fails to align with the facts. So it's a no-win deal from the get-go. It doesn't align with the facts, and yet I have a strong belief that it somehow will align with the facts. And in our unrealistic expectations, we're not really operating out of facts and reality. We're operating out of hopefulness, wishfulness. We're operating out of our own need to not feel bad. And that's why, that's the irony. That's why we spend a lot of time with this emotional buildup. Bitter, disappointed, I feel mistreated, I'm the victim of an injustice, and it leaves us distracted. And this is why if we don't change, if we don't learn how to get reality based, we're going to always have chronic frustration. We're going to always have resentments. And it's funny, this is one of those deep soul searching endeavors. When we're first starting to make some changes, it's so easy to say, oh no, I don't have any resentments. Oh no, I'm good. Oh, there was a couple of things. And what we're doing is we're looking at like big events throughout our life that maybe we've dealt with, maybe we haven't dealt with, but we don't even recognize just the moment to moment buildup that we can create for ourselves. And then, we end the day and we're frustrated and we're in a bad mood and whatever it is, and we can't figure out why. But we're thinking, well, it's because Bob didn't call me back at 11, and there was that thing, and then there was that thing that happened at lunchtime, and then there was that other thing, and what does that sound like? That sounds like victimhood, right? It sounds like classic addict thinking. It's always other people, places, things, and situations that is my problem. And so we will maintain these unrealistic expectations, waiting for everybody else to get in line, waiting for everything else to happen the way we want it to happen. But remember, that thinking doesn't align with the facts. Is it reasonable to have realistic expectations? Absolutely. But we've got to learn what that's supposed to look like. One is based on, it's part of the solution. One, realistic thinking comes about through learning how to not operate from feelings and being able to apply some critical thinking, not emotional thinking, regardless of how we feel. Right? It is what it is. It's like, well, man, I can't believe, I'm trying to think of a name nobody has. I don't want to offend anybody. I'll just use my name. I can't believe Miles keeps doing that thing. Golly, why does he... God, man, he just makes everything bad so often. Why does he keep doing that thing? Or why won't he do that thing? He never helps out. Miles never helps with the dishwasher. Miles never helps with, he'll never clean this. He'll never do, and then we can get so caught up in that, but what's reality? What does the evidence show us? I'm talking about in dealing with particular ongoing relationships or ongoing situations. Even though the evidence, the history shows that Miles never does what he says he's going to do. He always is rebellious or cantankerous or anti whatever is good. So we don't really have a Miles problem because Miles is just Miles. What we really have is an unrealistic expectation problem. And that's how, when we learn how to get reality based in our thinking, then all of a sudden you will find yourself able to deal with difficult people, difficult situations, disappointing people. It doesn't mean we're not ever going to get let down. It doesn't mean we're not ever going to actually get mistreated or any of these things. But what it does mean is that's what it looks like when we take back control of ourselves. And that's what these boxes represent. And we can live in this box when this is where our resentments are. This is where our unrealistic expectations are. This is also where we are controlled. we're allowing ourselves, not realizing it, but we're allowing ourselves to be controlled by people, places, things, and situations. Hoping, wishing, believing that maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time it'll work out. Well, that's a good time to apply some critical thinking. Is there any evidence that indicates that this time might be different? This is a really good early recovery topic too, because this is what our families are dealing with, and this is, as recovering addicts, is what we're dealing with. We're learning how to do these things. It doesn't mean we get relegated to, well, you've got a history of your words not having any meaning and being irresponsible, whatever that is. You've got a long history of right when things are going good, you shoot yourself in the foot. Okay, but this is why we don't want to make emotional decisions. We want to apply realistic expectations. A realistic expectation is well, if I should expect this time will be different, what can I rely on? What can I stand on? Is the person doing anything different, or are they still the same? Have they been making steps towards improving themselves, et cetera, et cetera? And so, well, now we've got a new some new pieces of fact. So our willingness to have realistic expectations, with caution, with boundaries, but that's what a reasonable expectation is. Well, you keep having all these asthma attacks, and so we went to the doctor and we got the medication, and you've been taking those. If you're still having the same, we'll say the same amount or the same regularity of those asthma attacks, then obviously that wasn't a right change. We need to figure out something else to change. And that's what growth looks like. That's what having realistic expectations look like. Versus just whatever the situation is. The all or nothing thinking. Well, okay, well if we're gonna go that way, then this person has never come through for me, so I'm just gonna put them in the don't ever believe again box, and then I'll really be safe. Well, no, that's not healthy either. That's why we don't want to make emotional decisions. We want to apply critical thinking. What is different about the situation that it has the capacity to be different? Just think about, in the beginning of your own recovery struggle. We're filled with unrealistic expectations. Well, I'm good now because I'm not, what set of facts are we using? Well, I didn't use this week, so I think I'm ready to get back to work, get a new house, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Even though there's no evidence that indicates we've been able to maintain that for any period of time. So the only bit of fact that we're using to believe that is I just haven't used today. That's the only thing that has changed. Or this week. I haven't used this week. Or this month, or whatever. Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. Shoot, let's go get a house. Let's go get a car. Let's go get... Because he didn't use. Which, of course, in the addict world, that completely, misses the whole reasons why we use in the first place. So, and I'm just using that as an example. That's how we can have unrealistic expectations. Start looking at facts, and I'm not talking about overthinking everything. I'm not talking about getting super analytical and intellectualizing our way through. It's like, we've been dealing with something this week. It's been a very frustrating, maybe last 2 weeks, been a very frustrating experience in the environment. And in fact, that's actually what kind of led me to even do this topic this week. I thought, maybe we should probably do this as a group. Because we can all fall into that. Man, if this one person would just do something different, then I wouldn't have to be disappointed, angry, bitter, feel wrong, then I wouldn't have to be all those things. But the reality is that's just the capacity of a particular person right now. So we get better when we bring realistic expectations to the table. So now we can have a person, place, thing, or situation in our life that is not at all what we wish we had in our life. But when we're not focused on wishing they were different, or unrealistically believing that they will do something different, even though there's no evidence that indicates they have that capacity yet, that what that indicates is how sick we can be in our thinking. And that makes sense because I didn't put it on the board, but our brains have been rewired. So of course we can kind of go down that little rabbit hole. And it's not just people. We can do it with things and places or locations, however you want to think about it. The healing, if we want to heal our unrealistic expectations, premeditated resentments, this is the box we want to start living in. Because, and I'm going to go back and forth, all resentments is unresolved anger. Right? I'm mad about something and it's unresolved, so I'll just stay in it. And what are we waiting for? We're not doing anything different. We're waiting for something. We're waiting for someone else to do something different. And the reason why we can stay stuck in that is because we're not even really dealing with the actual issue. So if resentment is unresolved anger, what is anger? Anger is the cover-up. Remember, anger is a condition. Anger helps us to feel, kind of in a distorted way, it helps us to feel like we're in control. So we'll increase our level of intensity and, oh, now I'm really mad at this thing, and if only they would. Not even recognizing how sick we're getting because of it. And this is, I put distracted from our own affairs. That's really where we want to start gauging our own values. You know that it's time to take a look at yourself, because we're allowing it to interfere with our other plans and our other values and our other goals and our other responsibilities. But as long as we maintain that thinking, like we're not in control, well, how can I be free? How can I focus on my stuff when this other person is doing that stuff? Or this other thing hasn't happened yet, or whatever it is, people, place, thing. In healing, when we look at ourselves and we really look at ourselves, you realize anger is a cover-up. We can be mad. Mad is an emotion, but that's what's underneath all that stuff. It's almost like the greater the level of our resentment towards something, or the greater the level our unrealistic expectations are towards something, the greater the level of pain we carry. The sad, the fear, the shame, the hurt. So a long time ago, we developed this survival mechanism wherein we just need everything to be a certain way, so that then I would be okay. Perfectionism. And after a while, it just catches up with us. And everybody, this is not just our group. All humans experience this. But it's extra important for us, because if we don't heal and we don't recognize or take back control of the life we want to live, we're either going to end up in jails, institutions, or death. Right? It doesn't end well for us. And that's why it's so important. So here's, we'll talk about 6 points. Expecting something to happen won't make it so. Okay, everybody can agree with that. Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Just because I expect it to happen doesn't mean it's so. And yet, we will operate in that. And that's the key here, is to start recognizing this in ourselves. This is why, we talk about all the time, slow down. We don't need to go faster. We need to go slower, so we can start understanding these things about ourselves. Slow it down. Expecting something to happen won't make it so. That would be magical thinking. Here's some examples. Well, traffic will be smooth today. Everything's going to work out today. Nobody will lie to me today, or steal from me today, or offend me. When I want something, I'm supposed to have it. Nobody will act stupid around me today. Nobody, or every line I get in should be a short line. In fact, I shouldn't have any lines today because I'm in a hurry and I got important things to do. Now, we can look at those things on the board and intellectually agree, well, yeah, that's insane. And yet, it's exactly how we find ourselves operating. Remember, the brain has been rewired, so there's a disconnect. No, I don't think all lines are supposed to cater to me. I don't expect traffic to move smoothly. I know, not everybody's going to like me today, right? That's what intellectualizing looks like. And yet, and here's the question that everybody wants to reflect on. You want to reflect on this? Just zero in on the periods in your day, those little moments where you recognize you're just a little off kilter, you're just a little miffed, a little out of sorts, and then pay attention to where your focus is or who it's on, right? Because that's what you'll discover. It's not on yourself, it's not on completing your next task or fulfilling your next responsibility, it's on someone or something else. And that's how we begin to heal this and to change this, is first we've got to recognize it in ourselves. Don't just intellectualize it. Oh yeah, I know, that's true, I don't do that. Well, why do we find ourselves with so much anxiety sometimes? Why do we find ourselves with so much resentment, unresolved anger? Why can we get so focused on someone or something and stay stuck there? That's why I love those recovery terms. We've heard, pitch intents, which is funny. One of the guys we were just talking about, he has a little strategy where he recognizes throughout the day. He visualizes it like he's pulling out a tent pole. He's starting to get a little distracted, and he's reaching for the next tent pole. He's going to start building some tents in his head over things he can't control. Or I've heard in recovery, sometimes we can lease out entire 20,000 square foot office building floors to something else. We don't occupy that space. We're letting someone else occupy that space. And so it may not seem like much, but these are all the things that we want to start paying attention to, because as you move through life, and remember I said earlier, everybody gets caught up in this. The important thing, because we're human, the important thing is to be aware of it and recognize it so that you can also counter it. We're all going to find ourselves in a position where we're just like, man, every time it rains, we flood, and it's the neighbors because they did this illegal drainage system, and that's a real story. And every time it rains, I find myself wanting to chunk rocks over the fence and break some windows, and maybe not that dramatic, but what's that costing us? What does it cost us? Don't just think of the word distractions. Yes, it gives us distractions, but get specific with yourself. I think a lot of people, and me included, can underestimate the power of our mental state. You can have all the skills and talents in the world and great dreams and ideas, but if our mental state is not where it should be, we just can't move forward. Start noticing that in yourself. Wherever you just look at something that's been really important to you, that you think you've been procrastinating it, and you might have been. And remember, that's a perfectionism issue. It's not a lazy issue. But you also might find that you've been having a lot of unrealistic expectations. You've got some resentments. You've got some expectations that something else is supposed to be different. and it's got you distracted, right? It's knocked your focus away from what's important to you, because that's the ultimate goal, right? If we want to take care of other people, we have to take care of ourselves first. The old airplane mask. So the second point is adjusting our expectations. Going through your life, adjusting our expectations to match reality, and look where we've come from. We've been living in fantasy land for a long time. And maybe, I don't know. Some of us have been living in fantasy land. A lot of it has just been distortion. Of course, we have a lot of distorted thinking. We've rewired our brain, or our experiences have rewired our brain. So, one of the examples that I give all the time, like learning what reality is supposed to look like. Because I think it's very realistic to get drunk and drive my kids around town in the back seat. Like it's not that big a deal, because it's not like anything bad ever happened. But getting reality based with ourselves and learning, sometimes we need to hear another person say, "Oh wow, that's not normal. It's not normal to drive around with a case of Red Bull in your trunk." Right? That's not normal. And yet, when we're confronted with those things, often it can be shocking. What do you mean? And I mean that in a really legitimate way, right? We've all kind of had those little confrontational moments where someone else has pointed out, "Hey, that's not right thinking." Really? It's not? But nothing bad happened. And then you realize how good we've gotten at rationalizing non-reality, rationalizing our distortions. So be willing to learn what reality is supposed to look like. And don't fall into that whole, well, everybody has their own reality. No, that's not true. Reality is reality. You can have your own experiences, but it just doesn't matter, because I could be colorblind. I might think the sky is purple. That doesn't make it purple. Just because I'm seeing purple, sorry, the facts indicate, because of oxygen, and I'm not a meteorologist guy. That's not my area of expertise, but for whatever is going on in the atmosphere determines the color, and that doesn't change, because God is perfect and consistent, and that's never going to change. The sky appears blue from the earth, except on a cloudy day, right? Whatever. But maybe I'm colorblind, and I'm just using the colorblind thing to kind of represent the distortion in our mind. We can have distortions in our eyes. We can be, color distorted. That's not a bad thing. We just have to learn what it's supposed to look like. People who get stuck in that, well, everybody has their own reality, are the ones who are afraid to become accountable. Because I can say, well, my reality is I don't have to earn my whatever. I don't have to work hard for things I want. That's my reality. My reality is people owe me stuff. Okay, well, that doesn't make it true. That's distortion. So be willing to learn what reality is. And I know that can be really hard for some of us, depending on your experience before recovery. Maybe you come to the table as a highly educated professional or businessman or whatever, and it's so hard to think that we don't know what reality is. And yet we just can't figure out why we are anxious and irritable and restless and discontent all the time. It's because we've developed unrealistic expectations to survive, to deal with it. The third one is, a man is what he thinks about all day long. Everybody's heard that saying. Ralph Emerson said that. Samuel in the Bible said this, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." We've all heard that. Whatever you think about is what you become. Don't underestimate or don't discount the value of our mental health, our mental state, our mental ability. And the fastest thing that knocks us off of that is having unrealistic expectations that turn into this emotional buildup of resentment. And recognize, because that sounds really harsh. Oh my gosh. Having resentments doesn't mean that you got to be walking around town all day long, like flexing and throwing stuff at people and smacking walls and slamming doors real hard and making it known that you're mad about something. Resentments, I think, are most demonstrated in us when we could, because we can adapt, right? We can present what we need to present in any atmosphere, but we're still stuck in our head. We're not really in that situation. We could go to a family birthday party and not really be present. And that's the cool thing, to go to a birthday party and be all present. That's seeing yourself in a realistic way. Seeing the experience in a realistic way. Letting it be what it is. That's a big one. Learning how to let other people be who they are, how they are, what they are, where they are, regardless of how we feel. And that's hard, because if we're needing other people to be a certain way so that I don't have to feel bad, you're gonna stay stuck in resentments. So let's go back to the thinking thing. We are what we think about all day long. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. So what do we think all day long? Are we thinking injustice? Are we thinking something's not working out, somebody's not doing something, somebody should be doing something? Well, what you're becoming is a victim. You're becoming a victim. And what is a victim? Victim is completely controlled by the world. Now, that's not the victim mentality. The victim mentality thinks that the world has been wronging them, right? They're being done wrong by the world. A victim doesn't take responsibility. A victim blames and blames and blames and blames and blames. Which, look at it, in its purest form. That's what we're doing with our unrealistic expectations, which then lead to a resentment. I'm saying that thing should be a different way, and I can't be happy, I can't be okay, I can't get back to my work until. Resentful. So if you're resentful all day long, you're going to be angry all day long. But remember anger, you can be passive too. It doesn't mean, just because that's such a harsh word and associated with like visual, maybe overbearing, strength, power, unwanted power. We do the same thing in the opposite direction. It's still driven by anger. We isolate, disappear. Why? Anger is about us trying to regain a sense of control. And one of the easiest ways for us to regain a sense of control is to check out. Right? I can go isolate, I can disappear, I don't have to communicate with anybody, I don't have to explain anything, I can just disappear. And then there's the other extreme where we want to physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally try to control people. The third part, though, if we'll be diligent about what we accept in our head, think about the expression leasing space in your head to something else. Well, now you got to think of yourself as you're the tenant or you're the landlord, right? You're the landlord. You control that space. You get to decide who gets what part of it. So if we're given the majority of it to our unrealistic expectations, what's left for our other relationships that really have value? What's left for me? What's left for my goals, my responsibilities, my values, fun, whatever it is. I tried to do like a pie one time, the old pie chart. I tried to do that with myself, because I was going to answer that question. I wanted to see the percentages, and I didn't get very far because it is kind of hard to gauge. But you get the idea. You know, be thinking about it. If you saw a realistic pie, and I don't know, whatever, put it in 8 pieces. It's like, well, here's my relationship with God. Here's my relationship with myself. Here's my relationship with my wife and family, and those are 2 different things. Here's my relationship with my work. Here's my relationship with whatever. What we don't ever account for is all the stuff we're giving away and don't realize it. If we really got honest with ourselves, we would see that oftentimes 80% of those pie pieces are consumed and disrupted and interfered with because we have unrealistic expectations. And we're waiting for someone, like I was talking about earlier, or let me finish that. We're waiting for someone else to do something different. But it's like, oh man, I haven't seen my kids in a while, and this Saturday we're going to meet up and we're going to have a nice dinner, and everybody's going to be there, and I'm so excited about it, and I've been looking forward to it. And then Friday rolls around, and I start getting stuck in my unrealistic expectations. So by Saturday, I'm in resentment mode. I'm mad. I'm kind of disconnected, not really giving all of me to whatever's in front of me. By the time I get to dinner, all I got is, hey, it's good to see you guys. So happy we could do this. You know, we're not really there. We're not really present. And we're still thinking about it. And maybe we're trying to solve some problem, and we're texting underneath the table, and well, you know, what is that? I'm still trying to get somebody else to do something different. That's what it looks like, as these unrealistic expectations can consume us. So don't allow yourself to be consumed. Just start getting honest with yourself about what that chaos looks like and what we can do about it, because we're going to deal with it the rest of our lives, right? We are human. The goal isn't to never have a bad experience. The goal is to understand enough about ourselves that we know what to do when we have a bad experience. When I'm having unrealistic expectations, what do you look like? Right? What does it look like when I'm having unrealistic expectations? The first thing that goes is what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? Even just mentally, I might be sitting in front of the computer and I might be looking like I'm whatever, working on something, but my mind's not there. I'm thinking about this and I'm wondering about that. And be honest enough with yourself that you can see that, because then you can heal that. That's the key. That's all we're saying. It is okay. So now we're going to kind of get into the other side of that. How do we deal with situations that we can't control? Number 4 is really frustrating, to expect other people to think, or we tend to expect other people to think and act the way we do, and that can be very frustrating. You know, just notice that that's what's happening. We think we're supposed to have the same values, we're supposed to have the same ideas, the same talents, the same motivations. You know, you really like doing this thing, or this is important to you, but it's just not important to the other person. And if you're not in tune to that realistically, you're going to have a miserable afternoon. You're going to be the guy doing all the work. You're raking all the leaves because it's really important to you, but it's just not important to the other guy. Well, that's reality. It doesn't have to be important to everybody. The problem isn't, oh man, you know, this guy, he won't rake as many leaves as I will. No, the problem is that I thought for a second that he would be as motivated as I am. That he would have the same leaf raking talent. That he would have the same, you know, whatever it is. It's funny, you know, we deal with community service guys every once in a while, and I learn a lot. I try to get to know them a little bit, and I'll go out there with them if I can and do some work with them. And some of them are just tell me what to do, and they'll knock it out. They're hardworking. They have a good sense of themselves. Maybe they got in a little bit of trouble, and so now they got to do some community service hours. But they really want to give themselves. They want to do a good job. And then other guys, maybe they probably should have done their hours at like the Jesus house or something. They probably shouldn't be in the yard. They probably shouldn't do physical stuff. It's just not in their wheelhouse, and that's fine. I totally get that. What I don't do is think everybody's going to show up and do the same amount of work. So I don't sweat it. We get credit. Okay, you lean on your rake for 4 hours. Fine, you were here 4 hours. It's not that big a deal. But because I had to learn how to have realistic expectations, and we don't all have the same, and that's okay. I mean, like values and motivations. The minute we think someone else has what we have, we're in big trouble. Okay, let's talk about social contracts. So how do we deal with external things when we should all be living by these social contracts, but someone else isn't following them? That's a really good question. So social contracts are just reasonable expectations that we can all have with each other in society, which include, or as an example, if I say hello, you'll say hello. If I say, how are you doing, you'll be concerned about how I'm doing. That I won't steal from you and you won't steal from me. Right? Yeah, that's my phone there. I can walk away from my desk. I'm not really concerned about anybody stealing it, because we're all kind of following this unwritten social contract. At least that's the expectation. I'm expecting that, and the evidence would indicate that I can reasonably expect that. And I mean that quite literally. Like in this environment, I don't know, 20 years, and yeah, people have stolen from us and it was big, but still, that was like 3 people over 20 years. The evidence indicates that's just not the caliber of people we have. So I don't think twice about it. Wow, remember the last time 10 years ago when that guy stole a cell phone? Probably not going to happen. So those are reasonable expectations, but we can also still protect ourselves. Right? We have that right. We can still protect ourselves. So if it does happen, and we understand boundaries and realistic expectations, I really don't have anybody to blame. I've said that all along. The last thing I think we got stolen. It's not about stealing, but it's about expectations. When things happen that you should expect, there are some bad people in the world. There are some people that will steal from you. There are some people that will lie to you. You don't want to expect everybody to do that. I don't want to take the 99% of my relationships and dump that 1% on them. But I still want to protect myself, so we can still do some things, like have boundaries. It's all about realistic expectations. So when it does happen, here's an example. We had 2 big generators stolen one time. And it hurt, it was bad. They were big, they were nice, and they were still in the box. We never even used them. And you know what the first thing I thought of? I should have used a bigger lock. And it was just naturally, I just took responsibility for it and wasn't trying to. I wasn't like, well, I need to do the next right thing here and accept my part in it. No, God was just kind of showing me reality. Well, you knew that wasn't a very good lock, and you knew that you had some things in that building that probably were worthy of a little bit greater security, and I didn't do it. And we didn't even file a police report because I didn't want a bunch of cops pulling up and freaking out the group. So we just let it be. It just was what it was. But it was a lesson. It reminded me of realistic expectations versus unrealistic expectations. An unrealistic expectation is it'll be fine. It's never happened before, so it's never going to happen. The evidence indicates that we live in a fallen world. We are humans. Heck, we might be that guy. We might be the one that hurts another, unwittingly. I don't think anybody would intend to do that. Maybe not steal something, but we can hurt people with our words. We can hurt people in all kinds of ways. It's the same thing. So what do we do if other people aren't abiding by our social contracts? I'm not sure if that C's over there. Let me just make sure. Let me look at this for a minute. Okay, yeah, this is worth. I know I'm trying to wrap it up, but this one, number 6, is worth covering. Here's the reality. You want to wake up every day, like one of my mentors used to tell me. You guys have heard this. Look, today you're going to come across people that don't like you. You're going to come across people that do like you. Somebody's probably going to talk bad about you. Somebody's probably going to talk good about you. You're probably going to get stuck in a few long lines. You might even get stuck in a short line. And he just kind of went down this whole list of what daily reality looks like. Now, and we can go, well, yeah, that seems reasonable. And yet, when we have one of those negative experiences, we can very easily get stuck. Notice that next time you're rushing to the bank or something on a Friday and you got to cash this check or whatever it is, and you rush in and there's this long line and you're like, oh God. It's not the long line, it's our expectation. And if you'll change your expectation, if you can reset and regroup and accept what's actually happening the way it is happening, your whole world will change. That's how, or that's what it looks like when we're protecting our mental state. Wow. So that means I could be in control. Yeah, but we got to do some things differently. So prisons, the first one was people have different blank. People have different fill in the blank. People have different all kinds of stuff. Prisons and shelters are filled with people who have unrealistic expectations. Prisons and shelters are filled with people who have entitlement. They have been irresponsible, immature, rebellious, goes on and on and on. And of course, we've all done these things too. I've been entitled like no other. I've been rebellious. I've been irresponsible. I've been immature. But I want to grow. Right? I'm willing to learn. That's why prisons and shelters are filled with same characteristics, but they can't move past it. Right? They're not willing to learn. They're still waiting for the world or for somebody else to do something different so they could finally be okay. And you guys know it's not coming. It's not going to happen. I think that's one of the greatest things about like addiction recovery is because all kinds of people suffer the same pain and maybe these negative defects that we deal with. But because we have an addiction that forced our hand, so to speak, right, it moved us into a position to either completely surrender and learn completely new, or we could maintain that believing the unrealistic expectation. It's not that big a deal. I'm fine. It's not me. It's them. The only reason I even drink is because whatever. The only reason I got hooked on pills is because whatever. And we end up in jails, institutions, or death. And shelters are institutions, right? Or psych hospitals, or they live a life being completely controlled, but they feel like a victim. Okay, so, and I just point that out because we're like, there's a fine line between us and them. That's how easy it is. If they could just see what we saw, then they would be willing to make changes. That's all it is. It's an unrealistic expectation. If they could just change their expectations to align with reality, then they would be motivated to change themselves. That's what we all did. And it wasn't fun, right? Arriving at that place, that was not fun. But we did it, and I don't want to repeat it, but we're going to learn from it. So controlling self or earning their way to success is off the table. That seems normal, right? I mean, we only deserve what we earn. So everything else is a bonus. That's what gratitude looks like. But people who go through life with unrealistic expectations, severe unrealistic expectations, and won't ever look at that, at the very least, live a miserable life. Right? You may not end up in prison, you may not end up in shelter, you may actually be financially successful, but not as happy as we could be. Don't really understand what joy looks like, or certainly how it feels. So here's the solution, and I kind of cheated early on. It's critical thinking. Being willing to get reality-based, applying critical thinking, learning how to separate reasonable expectations from unrealistic expectations. Well, if I have so much unrealistic expectation, how will I know what realistic expectations look like? Admitting that is the first part of that. But I'm willing to learn. That's what getting honest with ourselves looks like. It's not a bad thing. It's okay to say, man, my thinking's pretty messed up. I don't know what realistic expectations are supposed to look like, but I am willing to learn. And then it's on. We've become so emotionally driven, or that emotional reasoning, that we believe that's reality. Whatever I'm feeling, it must be true. Because I'm feeling something, I'm supposed to get something or change something, or someone else is supposed to do something, versus reality-based thinking. We get what we earn. We deserve what we earn. It's okay to ask for help. I don't know everything. The sky is blue, even though I think it's purple half the time, etc., etc. The second part is protecting ourselves. Because of these social contracts, and there are plenty of people in the world that will not follow those, we also have a right to protect ourselves. Whatever that looks like, emotionally, maybe it's physically. But if you can think about that throughout the day, let's go back to that one relationship or that one person in your life that shows no evidence whatsoever of doing anything different. In fact, their presence in your life can be disruptive. Adjust your expectation on that and watch how non-disruptive it becomes, even though they won't change. We can wear our seatbelts, road ragers. We can wear our seatbelts. We can improve our negotiating skills. We can lock our doors. We can lock cabinets. We can focus on what we can control. I'll leave that off. I was going to say something else, but. And the expectation is that if I'll do these things, then I will get better. An unrealistic expectation is if I will do these things, they will change. You might even recognize some of that in your own thinking, especially when it comes to relationships. Man, I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that, and they still act the same way. Right, because your expectation is out of whack. You're still, even though there's no evidence, you're still hoping that there might be. There's no evidence they're going to change. You can look at that. They're not doing anything different. But I can change, and then I get better. But what if they don't? Well, what if it's a relationship that you have to be a party to? What if it's a romantic relationship? Well, that's what sometimes those boundaries are hard. Sometimes it's time to move on. If this person isn't willing to make changes, and I'm not talking about, right at the get-go. Remember our social contract. I'll leave it at this. Remember our social contract. That also comes with our characteristics, our compassion, our unconditional love, our grace, our mercy. So maybe you're in a relationship where the other person is more disruptive than they are contributing. Well, check your values. Check your values. Maybe this is your time in that relationship to carry a little bit more of that weight while attempting to help the other person go through whatever they're going through. That's a normal, healthy, realistic expectation. But don't get yourself in trouble thinking because you're carrying some extra weight that the other person's automatically going to be different. Right? That's critical thinking, not emotional thinking or emotional reasoning. And if all else fails, the number one, I don't even know if I put it on there. The number one go-to solution: ask for help. Ask for help. Why don't we ask for help? For a lot of different reasons. But I think one of the primary ones is we don't think it's that big a deal. I'll figure it out. I'm supposed to already know everything. Okay, all that's emotional reasoning. What are we so afraid of? Remember what's underneath all this. It's that mad, glad, sad, hurt, afraid, ashamed. That's what's underneath all of that. So just ask for help. Reality is everybody needs help, but not everybody will ask for it. But the evidence indicates that people who do ask for help or ask more questions, learn more, know more, grow more, have more, people who think they've already got it figured out, there's nowhere to go. They've capped out. Emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, that's it. They can't learn anything else. They're just capped out. And now the hard part is recognizing, oh shoot, I'm that guy sometimes. So just get reality based with yourself. I'm that guy sometimes, and I don't want to be that guy. So I'm going to start practicing how to ask for help. Okay, it's hot. What is the temperature today? 100? Did it get to 104?
It was in the high 90s.
Oh,
Up here.
It didn't break 100 yet?
Well, it could be the feel like.
That's coming.
It is coming.
Coming.
Oh man, like a heat wave, a treacherous heat wave. Okay, well we're gonna cut it loose. Thank you guys for watching on YouTube. We hope your place isn't quite as hot as ours, but stay inside, stay cool, and keep checking back with us. Thank you all. Can you get it? Yeah, thank you. And I'll just smile.